When I was a young man, I undertook the arduous and glorious task of arriving at moral perfection. Now, you are no doubt laughing at that. But I thought to myself, God cannot expect of us more than we are able to perform. I know, or I thought I knew, what was right and what was wrong. So why ought I not to be able to do always that which is right and eschew always that which was wrong? Well, I discovered that that was not so easy a task as I had first imagined. Whilst I was attending to one thing, another thing drew me off, and ere I even knew it, I had done something that I disapproved of later. And I realized that virtue is as much a matter of habit as anything else, and I should consider not merely what I ought to do, but how I ought to acquire the habit of doing it. And so I devised a scheme. I made a list of 12 virtues, which I thought I was in need of cultivating. I wrote down not only the name of the virtue as I conceived it, but also some explanation of what I meant by the term. I drew on many sources to compile this list, and as I say, there came to be 12 of them. I tried to put them in an order that each, if mastered, would assist me in accomplishing the next. So I began with temperance. Eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. For I knew that a temperately nourished body, not overfed nor over-imbibing of spirituous liquors, is more likely to be able to accomplish other virtues than one that is intemperate. Second, silence. Speak but what may be beneficial to yourself or to others. Avoid trifling conversation. This was a great fault I had in those days. I was an endless chatterer, and too much time was wasted on such chatter. Third, order. Let all your things have their place. Let each part of your business have its time. For I thought if I acquired this habit of regularity, that I should always know where everything is, I should know how to put my hand on it, I should waste no time looking for it, and I should also accomplish my work better if I set definite certain hours to each task. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought, perform without fail what you resolve. For how can you accomplish anything if you can't do what you intend to do? Frugality. Make no expense, but to do good to others or yourself. Waste nothing. How many of us waste our substance on things that are of no benefit to us and no benefit to anyone else? And so we are unable to do the things we ought to do because we have wasted our substance doing things that are useless. Industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. Industry is sort of the temporal aspect of frugality. Frugality means waste not your money. Industry means waste not your time. Sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly. And if you speak accordingly. Justice. Wrong none by doing injuries or omitting benefits that are your duty. It is as important to do what is just to others, both in giving and in other respects. Moderation. Avoid extremes. Forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. For certainly we all tend to think much more highly of the ill done to us than is properly just. And so it is well that we should always look upon things that are done ill to us more moderately and more forgivingly. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanness in body, clothes, or habitation. Well, that's rather obvious. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles or at accidents common or unavoidable. And 12th, chastity. Rarely use venery but for health or offspring. Never to dullness, to weakness, or the injury of your own or another's peace or reputation. These were the 12 virtues as I arrayed them. I showed them to several of my friends. I showed them to a Quaker of my acquaintance. And he said, Franklin, I think you have omitted one. You are commonly thought to be proud and puffed up and conceited. And so I added a 13th, humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. Now, how was I to acquire these 13 virtues? Well, in the end, I made up a little memorandum book, at first on paper, but later with thin sheets of ivory that I could make marks upon and wipe away. On each leaf of the memo book, the little memorandum book, I had the 13 virtues listed in a column and the 7 days of the week across the top, so that there was a place where each intersected. The notion was that at the end of the day, I should think back on all that I had done in the course of the day, and I should consider whether I had violated any of those virtues by word or deed in the course of the day. And if I had, I should put a little black mark on that day and next to that virtue. Thus, at the end of the week, I might see precisely where I had made the most faults and where I had perhaps done the best. And then I took it further. I thought, each day of the week I shall devote earnestly to one of those virtues, and concentrate my attention as upon that one, and let the others do as they wish. Still, judge them all at the end of the day, but draw my attention chiefly to the one. I hoped that by so doing, as I went through this cycle week by week, I might gradually improve in each of these virtues. At first, I was dismayed to find I was much more full of faults than I had imagined. There were far too many black marks on each page than I thought there would be. But over time, gradually, their number reduced, and for that I was pleased. But I could never come to a day when the column was completely empty, let alone an entire week's page, which was distressing. And I began to think, well, something pretending to be reason, I suppose, said, well, you know, after all, a truly benevolent man would never wish to be too perfect. After all, if he showed no faults at all, it would put all of his friends into a state of discontent. They would all be unhappy with him if he was so perfect as that. And so a generous man would always leave himself a few faults just to keep his friends happy. That rather reminded me of a story. One of my neighbors went to a smith. He had just got himself a new axe, and he had the smith to grind the edge of it and sharpen it for him. And when he went to retrieve it and saw it, he said, you know, I should like to have the whole of the head of the axe as bright and shiny as that edge is. Can we not polish all up so it's all, the whole head of the axe is shiny and bright and not black? Well, the smith said to him, well, sir, I have no objection to doing that. So long as you will turn the grinding wheel, I'll be happy to polish up the axe for you. And so the man went to turning the great stone grinding wheel, and the smith laid the axe against the wheel, hard and strong. and made the sparks fly. Of course, the man found that to be a very fatiguing work. And after a time, he'd pause and say, "What progress do we make?" And Mr. says, "Oh, no, keep at it, we've only just begun." And finally, after a long while, when the man was quite exhausted, he said, "You know, I think we've done enough. I think we've done enough." And the Smith said, "Oh, no, not at all, sir, not at all. Look, we've only just begun. The surface has a great deal more to be done. All you have now is a speckled axe." And he said, "Well, I think I like a speckled axe best." and off he went with it. Now, in the end, I suppose I had the greatest difficulty with, on the one hand, pride. I don't know that I ever conquered it. At least not the thing itself. I to some extent conquered the appearance of it, so that I did not appear proud, but I remained proud and vain. I suppose if I ever had achieved true humility, I would have been so proud of my humility that, well, the other thing that I fell short upon was the virtue of order. When I was young, I had a strong memory. I could always put my hand on everything whenever I wished it, without much thought. So I never acquired the habit of keeping everything in one place and keeping it in good order. I never did. And now, when I am old and my memory is bad, I very much feel the want of that virtue. And I would that I had devoted myself better to acquiring it when I still could. Now, did all of this in the end enable me to arrive at a perfect moral character? No, it did not. But I am convinced that I am a better man and a happier man for having made the effort. And I am more than ever convinced that virtue and the benefits of virtue are largely a matter of habit. For what is habit is, as it were, a second nature to us, and what is habitual is always easy. It is when things that are not habitual, they are a struggle and a pain to us. And therefore, I would advise anyone beginning in life to cultivate habits, for it is far easier to avoid acquiring a bad habit than it is to break that bad habit once it has been acquired. It is much easier to acquire a good habit when there's nothing in its place than to break a bad habit and improve it. So when one is young, it is important to cultivate good habits. And perhaps the little memorandum book that I used and the daily examination of my own conduct might prove a beneficial method for others to employ as well.